Bueno, buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon.
Bienvenidos a esta segunda
Welcome
tanda
to the second block of conferences, of presentations on the first afternoon of the 12th Spanish Passivhaus Conference. This year it's a little different. This new format that we've had to use obviously has been forced upon us due to the health pandemic worldwide. But I think everything's been organized very efficiently, and I hope that the organization has enabled us to enjoy another conference, which is something that we were looking forward to the whole year. First of all, I would like to thank all of the speakers for their presentations. They've been very interesting, as always. And thanks to all of the participants and people who've connected online.
Vamos a empezar a ofrecer preguntar las cuestiones que nos habéis.
We're going to start by asking questions to the speakers that have been sent in. And if there are any more questions and we have time at the end, then we can include further questions. But there's not much time for this Q&A session. And if there's not time to answer all of the questions, we'll send them directly or pass them directly on to the speakers concerned. Let's begin with the first speaker, a presentation on the Los Rosales elderly people's home. First of all, I would like to congratulate Felix for your commitment to this project. In the platform, we attribute a great deal of importance to these type of projects, to these users. The elderly are much more sensitive, just as school children are in schools. So you've presented some very interesting data. And you've highlighted the gravity of the situation. The questions for you focus on the same aspect of the project, and the questions refer mainly to the reason why, or they want to know why you decided to achieve airtightness with plasterboard on the interior, on the finished interior of the building, and whether this gave rise to any problems with the building owner when it came to explaining that that's the way the walls had to be, that you couldn't perforate the walls. And whether this aspect gave rise to any complications in the execution of the project, because I understood that it delayed the blower door test, because you had to wait for the plaster to be applied, or whether you incorporated an additional phase that we may be accustomed to in other types of projects. Okay, well, first of all, thank you to everyone, and thanks to the organizers for the excellent organization of this online conference. I think it's proving to be a really good experience for us all. And to answer the questions, I'll try to answer as concisely as possible. We provided the insulation. But if there are any aspects that I don't answer, then please send in the questions to me via email and then I'll answer directly. As I mentioned in my presentation, our project was defined or designed actually before the pandemic, before the crisis that we're immersed in at the moment. So it was put on hold and then it was resumed. Actually, there was a project that was initially initiated many, many years ago at the time of the economic crisis, but then it was resumed in 2016. So there was a budget that had already been defined. The Passivhaus consultant on this project, Luis Soler Calvo, was aware that different tests had been carried out on the performance of different thicknesses of plaster, in this case plasterboard, in order to achieve like a airtight layer. And this was a proposal that Luis made to the owners to execute the project as quickly as possible, consisting in the placement of a membrane vertically, and also to achieve economic savings and labor savings. It was a risky commitment, a risky decision, because in such a large project, such a decision hadn't been taken, but the result was good. The blower door test was performed before placing the second cladding layer, and it was done by sections to confirm that the work was being executed correctly. I don't have a 100%, I can't be 100% sure exactly what the owner's feedback has been. But I think that following the advice of the consultant, the owner decided to commit to this solution. The blower-door test results were good. In terms of the use of or the placement of any decorative elements on the walls, well, I haven't received the opinions of the renter, of the tenants actually of the building, but it's just something that they've taken into account, and I understand that they've adapted perfectly to the solution. So those are the criteria that we used when we prepared the budget. And Luis gave us a great deal of experience, thanks to his experience in blower door tests in the past with these type of plaster products, and the results were very good. It was a success. Thank you very much, Felix. The next speaker question for Rafael Bravo of Orki on PCOM4. The question is about the use of the three heating systems. According to your experience, which is the one that can be implemented best in passive house buildings? Well, first of all, I would also like to thank the platform for giving us this opportunity to participate. And I would also like to acknowledge the words of my colleague in congratulating you for the organization. To respond on the question about the systems, well, basically we use two modalities. One is the basic option. As you know, PCOM4 has two independent heat pumps. Within the equipment, there's no connection with the exterior unit. So the first heating section would be performed by the air conditioning, which would work, the air conditioning system, which would work on the ventilation system, providing up to 1.3 kilowatts. The COP was 0.8, which is very high. That is the first heat phase. And you can see that the heating performance is excellent. And to complement this, there's also electrical support, which is can be modulated. So in order to achieve greater efficiency and greater comfort, we try to provide the necessary airtightness to ensure that people are comfortable inside without having excessive consumption. That's like a basic option that we offer. The option of the plus option would be to, in addition to the other two solutions I mentioned before, we also provide a lot of experience in being able to work with a second heat pump to contribute heating exclusively for sinks and kitchens, and also to add a little bit more heating to the users through underfloor heating, or if you would like to have a low temperature heating rack for towels, then that would also be another option. So we offer these type of solutions integrated within this equipment. This really helps us to cut down on many of the installations, and we achieve a high level of energy efficiency. Thank you very much, Rafael. The question for Manuel Lobo from FIMSA. Well, FIMSA is a company that has been accompanying us in our conference for some time now. They have different products certified. And rather a question about the product that you presented, the question is about FIMSA's opinion on the current market for passive house products in our country, in Spain. I understand that in the last 4, 5, or 6 years, the market's changed radically. And we'd like to hear your opinion about the specialization and manufacture of these type of products and systems that you described in your presentation. Thank you very much, Arturo, for the question. And like the other speakers, I would like to thank the organizers for the excellent conference. I really believe it's an organizational success, given the difficulties that we have experienced, enabling us to conduct this conference online and to continue talking about passive house and promoting passive house here in Spain. For us, having certified products as airtight units and products has really proved to be a revolution. We have a whole series of prototype products, and we want to offer differentiated products, and I'm sure that Passive House offers that differential component. We've also developed the vapor stop that I presented in my presentation. It can be used in many different scenarios, and this has really allowed us to take a quantum leap in terms of the quality of FIMS's products in the market. It's a market that we weren't in at the time, and being able to certify, well, all of the colleagues actually in FIMSA in our company, the architects, builders, we've all Passivhaus designers. Passivhaus is actually a differential factor today, and I believe that it will continue to be a differential aspect. So we really want to continue developing products that really differentiate from the rest of the market, so that we continue to certify and continue to offer value to architects and designers who are committed to Passivhaus using wooden structures. So we want to be there with you, so that you can help us also to approve our projects. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manuel. The next question is for Francesc Cazorla, who's with us. I found it very interesting to listen to you starting about thermosolar protection at the beginning of your presentation, which is so important in Passivhaus projects, something that we're increasingly aware of. But I'd like you to explain a little bit more about energy management that you mentioned in your presentation, and also the possibility of increasing or reducing set point temperature, and also how you manage electrical appliances within these type of structures. Okay. Again, well, I would also like to say the same as my colleagues. Congratulations to the organizers, and thanks for giving us this opportunity. I'm going to try to summarize very concisely. On interiors, it's something that's not as easy to achieve, in fact. So I'll use a project as an example. Let's just think of a Passivhaus home and add a little perspective. There can be different types of systems. Photovoltaic panels. We know that photovoltaic panels generate continuous electricity, and all of our electrical appliances and devices operate on alternate current, 230 in Spain. So what do we need apart from that? Well, we need a component which is called an inverter. The inverter, what does it do? Well, it inverts a continuous current into an alternate current so that we can use these type of devices. There's also the air renewal system. This can be by any manufacturer. It can also allow communication. It can also allow us to modify and adjust a ventilator, a ventilation system. This can also allow us to control PPMs and also temperature. But what tends to happen? There can also be an aerothermal heating system or underfloor heating system that is also something we have to take into account. Apart from this, there will also be consumers that will be connected in homes, but very probably, and this is a reality today, we are probably purifying a home with the possibility of integrating car chargers with all of these new electrical cars on the market. So we have to think about how we can take best advantage from an energy perspective of all of the options that photovoltaic systems provide, air renewal systems provide, and also aerothermal systems, and also passive shading through the use of shutters and blinds. And how we can manage all of this to make it effective. All of these components tend to, let's say, endorse different types of communication protocols. If we have an inverter by X manufacturer, there will probably be a protocol that will apply. And it's very probable, very likely, that the air renewal system can be regulated from 0 to 10 volts. The aerothermal manufacturer will probably have a panel that we can also use. So all of these are accompanied by communication protocols. So what do? Well, since we speak the majority of, in inverted commas, languages on the market, in other words, communication protocols, our system is able to administer and manage all of this information and then distribute that information in the best and most efficient manner. If there's an energy peak or spike and there's nobody at home, for example, we may have a water purification system or a swimming pool heating system, why don't we use that excess photovoltaic energy to increase the temperature set point, and then at night not have to consume energy from the grid? And the example that was given by my colleague Francesc Soler regarding electrical appliance management, well, what's normal is at night we don't open our fridges or freezers, so the airtightness of the fridge will allow us to maintain the temperature of the food inside those devices for many, many hours, which is what tends to happen in countries like Germany, which is a leader in the market. So it's these type of details that we can really focus on. Why do we need to have refrigerators consuming if from, let's say, we can have that refrigerator activated or supplied by photovoltaic power, and just before we go to bed at night, we don't have to consume energy. So it's at these type of points that we can go. Thank you, Francesc.
De acuerdo, gracias. Para Iñaki del PRIM, bueno,
Yes, now, Iñaki del PRIM. We're used to seeing these types of projects. They're like the Iñaki brand type products. And of course, we see that on a yearly basis. The message is clearer. And I see, be careful when you see something like this. You know, the profile of usage, the activity of the building, and everything related to it. The questions about your project focused mostly on things that you've explained before, but we'll repeat this. You're using an active slab in your building. Could you tell us a little bit more about the slab and its main features? Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers, the PEP, most particularly for the immensely hard work they've been doing and how much time they've invested in this project. Because this is a complicated event to organize, and I'm extremely grateful for how well it has been organized. And with respect to the slab, well, we had been observing in the buildings that we had been worked on and with ideas that we've used in previous projects to have this slab that is in the envelope based on wood, whether it's CDT or other materials. And we've seen that when we commissioned the buildings, the slab was taking too long in reaching the comfort level temperature. And therefore, the comfort inside the building for the users was like took a long time, difficult to reach. It took about 2 to 4 months. And then we also realized that studying the different phases of inertia and the wooden envelope did not adapt well. And this means that they didn't adapt to the ever-changing and variable uses that individuals make of this building. So it's not a brand, but this is happening. This is happening all the time. And when we encounter these challenges, we try to solve them in the way I've explained in my presentation. So this concern we had increased with the passing of time. So it made us, think about it and say, look, we're worried about this and see how are we going to sort this out? And we've been talking to users, with designers, and we tried to solve it in the easiest way possible. So what we were actually doing, look, we have a minimum amount budget. We have the slab here, and the slab is there for us to put the tiles on top. That's how the project is defined. And for a little bit more, you just put in the water piping on the top, and you can activate the slab. So what is the role here that the slab plays was to remove the variable of inertia, momentum, and then maintain that temperature, that variation of that concrete slab so it remains stable. And to improve the comfort and the temperature inside the building. And why? Well, because we need a swiftness of reaction, a swiftness of reaction. So when you activate it, you're silencing the concrete features and we stabilize the temperature. So it's irradiating, it's activated, and it has an impact on the temperature, both in summer and in winter. In winter, it's warming up the inside of the building, and in summer, it's decreasing the temperature of the inside of the building. Thank you, Iñaki. Esteban Pardo has shown us the building of Victoria in Arnedo. It's a super interesting project, like all of his projects. They're really, really cool projects. And I would like to tell you that the questions about your project are mostly focusing on the problems of this huge window looking south with no shading, and how you've been working with different shading techniques. And what's the percentage of HCPP of overheating that you've had with this southern looking window? And then when you were talking about the powers in the building, the figures of power, don't you think it's too much to have 81 kilowatts for heating and 71 for cooling? Don't you think you could have adjusted these figures a little bit more? And how did you manage to reach these figures? First of all, I'd like to join my voice to those of my colleagues and thanking you for not only organizing this meeting and thanking my colleagues for their wonderful presentations. I'm grateful to BEP for allowing me to talk about my project. And it's wonderful to see that despite all odds, you're here. You're here with a conference that's taking place. Replying to your question, Arturo, I would like to say the following. The data for overheating frequencies, well, I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it was relatively high. And it had to do with the orientation. It had to also to do with all the logistics and the site itself. And in a building like this, all the logistics play a very important role, as well as the warehouse and where the offices are. I would say that the value would be around 15 or something like that. Though I haven't discounted the passive cooling systems which we should do. And remember that all the yards are used for cross ventilation and for other types of ventilation. And in any event, for me, what's really important about this project is precisely the fact that is looking south. So it makes that the comfort inside and all other features are going to depend on the shading you get. In winter, from the values you can see the demands are very, very low because there is a lot of sun coming in, but in summer, the shading system doesn't work. It's risky, they are robotized or automated blinds. And that the building has been designed to follow the movement of the sun. And I'd like to say that The system's working well. We're having some problems with the blinds because there are many of them. And I've also talked about the yards and the role they play. And this meant that we had to oversize the cooling systems and the climate control systems in general. And that's why for cooling, we have 40 kilowatts power. And why did we reach this figure? Well, because we are using it for reliabilities, just in case the sun protection system doesn't work, the shading system doesn't work. And there's some areas like the showroom that becomes an area where representatives meet and many people meet. And therefore, as it's a very large room and many people can meet there, we wanted to have a cooling system that would maintain the comfort levels despite the amount of people in the room, even if it was overly crowded. Well, thank you, Esteban. And finally, with respect to Stephen's presentation, I'd like to say that in the chat, everybody says, congratulations. Everybody felt that it was an extremely interesting project. This is a really first passive house building that's different. You see the first building in nowhere, and some here and there, but this is a dealership, and it's a very complex building to design and a huge bet. So congratulations for your project. And when I saw your presentation, the first thing that came to mind was this question that we're always asked by users or possible owners of a future passive house, because I've always heard that you can't open windows in a passive house, because otherwise you've got a troll behind you that's telling that if you open the window, your house will be too cold and you won't be able to heat it up because you don't have heating in a passive house. So your example is showing us that there is no way whatsoever that will happen. You have extreme cold weather, you have huge doors that open and close, and how have things developed, with these doors? How did everything go? Because it was a really important challenge.
Thank you. I'd also like to echo the rest of the speakers in saying thank you very much for having me here. Very grateful to be part of such a well-organized conference. And thank you for the question. Yes, the overhead doors were a very big challenge on the project and something that we recognized right from the beginning that was going to be challenging. And that was the reason why we focused on having the number of doors removed very early on. This was to reduce how much of a problem we were going to have with these doors. With regards to the air tightness and the air loss, as you've said, it's a very cold climate. So we had to put a lot of emphasis on how much air we were going to lose through the doors. Unfortunately, there hadn't been any studies done on air loss through such doors. We were able to locate a study that was carried out in Germany on man-made doors, or just a single person door. So as each person would enter or exit the building, there was a calculation done as to how much air or heat was lost through this door. So we were able to use this study as a basis for our study with the overhead doors. Of course, we had to multiply it by a factor to account for the larger doors. And there is a question about how accurate this calculation could be, as it is just based on a single person door. But based on that study, the air loss was considered quite small. And to add to that, these overhead doors open and close quite quickly. They're high-speed opening and closing, which again minimizes the amount of air loss every time a car comes in or out. Another factor which helped us was that the car dealership owner owns a number of car dealerships. So we were able to use a lot of the information with regards to utilization and to count the number of times he estimated these doors would open and close. So we were able to calculate that it would be less than, say, 15 times a day. And overall, we were able to deal with that heat loss through these opening and closings. So I believe that answers your question, unless there's I can go into more detail.
Sí, sí.
Yeah.
Bueno, de acuerdo, pues muchas gracias.
Well, thank you very much. That's all for the time being. I would like to thank you yet again for attending this meeting. Please remember that now we're going to visit a Passivhaus building. So please stay tuned in because we're going to visit the building. And we'll continue next week with our conference. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you. Goodbye and thank you.